So it's just enough of that overdrive in there to just give it some warmth. So it's not distorting, it's not clipping, it's not hopefully not sounding too bad, but it's just giving a little bit of that saturation and that analog warmth. Vocals can be really dry and boring if you just record them through a digital audio interface, but there's a really cool tip that can actually just dirty up your vocals a little bit, and it's not actually that difficult to do. So what I'm going to do is we'll come into this lead vocal and we'll solo it. Now I think I've done some weird effects to it before, so we'll just come in and check this and make sure, I've used this delay, which wasn't on there originally. I think that was in another video I was showing that, but these are the vocals for my song New Beginning. So if we play this. Hesitation and fear of change. Now what you'll notice here is I have this on here. Now this is overdrive. It's one of the default plugins that we have here in GarageBand. So you will have it. If you have GarageBand, you have overdrive, but I'll show you how to add it in just a moment. You can see there that we've got like 4.7 around about that 3000 Hertz mark. And this is just creating a little bit of that grit, because digital recording, like back in the day, tape recording would have a bit of saturation. It would have a bit of analog warmth. And when we're doing digital recording these days, funnily enough, it can actually sometimes sound too good. It's too pristine. It doesn't have any of that sort of gravelly texture that can sometimes work, especially in a rock vocal. So if we come in here, let's just remove this. So first of all, just take a listen. So this is again what it sounds like with the drive in there. Hesitation and fear of change. So I quite like that vocal tone, yeah, but let's get rid of the overdrive and let's listen to that passage, that same passage without any drive. Hesitation and fear of change. So it's not bad, yeah, because we've still got compression on here, we've still got that tape delay, and we've still got a bit of EQ here doing the work. So that's why you got a little bit of that top end. If we take the top end EQ off here as well, then you're not getting much at all. Paralyze you. Made you doubt. So it starts to really get a little bit too digital and clinical and clean. So the reason that we add some overdrive or some distortion you can also use on here is just to dirty it up a little bit. So to do this, we just hit the edit button there, we hit the plus here on our effects, and it's this one here, overdrive. Now by default, it goes nuts, yeah? It says 11 dB of drive at 1600 Hertz. 11 dB of drive at 1600 Hertz sounds like this. Hesitation and fear of change. Now that's an effect in itself. If you've got, say, you're doing a chorus of a song, or you're going into a bridge where you want to have almost that sort of loud hailer megaphone kind of sound, then that can actually work out well for you. But for your standard vocals, what I tend to find works better is to do it subtly. So I'll drop it anywhere between about 2 dB and up to about 5 dB. I wouldn't go much higher than that. So what we dialed in before was around about there. And the tone is the tone at which it's distorting. So if we leave it at that default, take a listen. Hesitation. Kind of flattens it out a bit, yeah? Fear of change. So if we want that to actually be a little bit more treble heavy, which we generally do with a vocal like this, I'll normally drop it, and it'll depend on your voice. So it's not, that's why there's no setting. The same with compression. People are like, how do I EQ a vocal? How do I compress a vocal? It depends on the vocal. It's different for every single track. But for me, I tend to put it around about here, and you get this sort of sound. Hesitation and fear of change. I paralyzed you and made you doubt yourself. So it's just enough of that overdrive in there to just give it some warmth. So it's not distorting, it's not clipping, it's not hopefully not sounding too bad, but it's just giving a little bit of that saturation and that analog warmth. Now there are a bunch of other apps that can do a similar thing. So one that I think is pretty cool is something called Tape Cassette 2. So if you want something with a little bit more control and a little bit more of a lo-fi, rub it in the dirt kind of sound, if we come on down here to Tape Cassette 2, free plugin from Calum Audio, who are awesome. And this time we've got a whole bunch of different controls here. So you've got a saturation knob, you've got a low pass filter, and then you can dial in your flutter and your wow and your noise. So you can make it really sound more like a tape recording from the 80s. So if we take a listen to this, hesitation, and you can really, and fear of change. Add in some noise. I've paralyzed you. Some tape flutter. And made you doubt your bit of wow. So you might not want to go quite that nuts, but with it, just using it even just as a saturator, like just add in a little bit of saturation and do nothing else, you can actually get yourself a pretty good tone. Fear of change. have paralyzed you and made you doubt yourself. So even just using the saturator knob on this one and nothing else, then you can get yourself a pretty good sound. So there you go, a way to make your vocals sound a little bit nicer, sit better in the mix, and just rough them up a little bit. Sometimes too clean can sound too clean and too boring. So hopefully that helps you out if you're looking to mix your vocals in GarageBand.